You're listening to the Raccoon Roundtable podcast, episode number 64. I'm your host, David Oria. I'm here with my co-host,
Chris Agana, and we are here to celebrate Filipino American History Month. It's October, and if you didn't know, now you know that is Filipino American History Month. As we've mentioned before, everybody on our team is actually Filipino American, and very, very excited to have the guest this month and just sharing just the shift that we're going to have in Raccoon Rounds. How about for you, David?
Yeah, man, I'm super excited for everything that's to come, and honestly, this is just a little preview of that.
Yeah, man. And I want to share something that I got recently. I like Pops, man, but like, check this out, dude. This is the Mickey Mouse Philippines in a barong. Like, this is legit, man. I had to have this when I started.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
But yeah, man, just kicking off Filipino American History Month. Hope you guys enjoy it.
Let's go. Man, okay, so today is a pretty kind of a significant episode. And we'll kind of get into why that is. And it's just us two get to kind of, hear our voices again. Yep. And but no, it's the reason why we bring this up is because maybe you should do this, Chris. Like what's so significant about, I guess, the time we're in right now?
Oh, so right now we're in the month of October, and we are celebrating Filipino American History Month, which honestly, I did not know it was Filipino American History Month until we started talking about it this year.
Seriously.
Sad, but at the same time, I'm glad that I learned about it, and I am taking more initiative to learn about it, understanding just the impact of Filipinos when they came here to America. What's crazy is that the reason why they commemorate October is not because, when America became a country, that the immigrants came here. They go all the way back to the 1500s when Filipinos first landed foot into this land. I think somewhere in California, which is kind of wild if you think about it. Just showing the impact of the history from our people, from our country. You know what I mean? Have you known that it's been? Oh, I think it was official in 2009. I'm shooting the date up there. I was just trying to learn more about it.
Dude, honestly. And this goes back to even when I was growing up. So I was probably one of the only Filipino kids in my high school. Me and my cousin. We were the two Filipino kids. No. Actually, I take that back. In middle school, we were probably the only two Filipino kids. High school, there was a Filipino club. There's maybe 15 of us, and that's kind of where this. I started. That's kind of when I really started to learn about what it meant to be Filipino, kind of, and so it started super late, and so no, man, my Filipino history that's not something that I'm well versed in at all, and it's kind of sad to say, but also it's being able to, I don't know, going to college was definitely eye-opening for me, and the growth that I've kind of experienced as a Filipino American has changed a lot through those years, and then up until now. But dude, yeah, even before then, it was something that I definitely did not really. It was not a focus at all. What about you?
Yeah.
You grew up in California, so maybe that's different.
Actually, I grew up all over since a military kid.
Right. Yeah.
So I would say that I was lucky enough to be around a lot of Filipinos growing up, and at least through elementary, because I was in Hawaii, and then when we moved around, my dad's in the Navy, a lot of Filipinos in the Navy. So a lot of the students they're called Dodea schools. A lot of them were Filipinos. So when I went to out of the country, there'd be Filipinos there. When we went to Japan, and then eventually went to high school in Guam, there was a lot of Filipinos there, not just in the military, but because there's a lot of just Filipinos that live on that island. And then it wasn't until maybe sometime in college that we moved to the Central Valley, and there was not many Filipinos there. So that was one of my first times feeling like a minority, and not just I guess being one of the few Asians in that area, but specifically Filipino, man, you know what I mean? At times I felt not seen, which is kind of crazy because you're used to being among people of the same culture. I grew up being among people of the same culture, but being now isolated and feeling okay, I'm probably being generalized when they look at me, or I don't really feel like I have someone I can relate to here. You know what I mean? Besides, of course, at my church, but when I was going through college, I was just looking at my classmates and trying to find somebody who looks like me. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's
But
such an interesting experience, man.
it is.
It's like it was probably like the exact I don't want to say exact opposite. It was just
I want to say
different.
opposite.
Yeah,
Yes, dude, from what you just explained.
yeah, and like dude, I'll be honest with you, man, like um I probably identified more in high school as Asian than I did as
Mm,
Filipino.
mhm.
And growing up, like I like yeah, I like identified more with like, like the whole like Asian pride movement.
Yeah, I
Like,
remember that.
but
That was
like
me too. Mhm.
I was more culture shocked when I moved to California. And
Mm,
so for example, I I went to LA for college, and when I was there, like just like the abundance of like Asian people, Asian students,
mhm,
was apparent. I was just like,
mhm,
well, I never like ever been surrounded by so many like Asians
mm.
as I did when I was in college. But then also like there's like like subdivisions, like
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then I had like a Filipino club, like the Filipino club at my school. I had like a counselor that was like a senior or like a junior that was Filipino. Like I was like I didn't even know that that was like a thing,
That's crazy.
you know?
Yeah,
And
that's crazy.
then my parents moved to San Diego, and then there's like an entire like neighborhood that's purely Filipino. And I was like I was shocked, bro. I
Yeah.
was seriously shocked. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, it is. It is, man. And I think this I feel like now that we've gone through like this level of experiences, you know what I mean? And I think with information at our hand, it's our responsibility to learn more about our history. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like before I could say I can make the excuse that I didn't learn about this in school, there's not many classes. I mean, that's still an issue, right?
Mhm.
Because I was just telling David that I'm trying to find a Filipino American course out here in our San Diego County, and I couldn't find one. Maybe if
Yeah.
listeners know, let me know, but I couldn't
Yeah.
find one. But it's like I think there's enough information online. There's enough people out there who want to connect online, and probably even your community, that it's like there's no excuse not to learn more. And I'm trying to learn more, knowing especially that's my goal for this month. I would say my goal this month
Nice.
is to learn more about American history and just making more connections and relationships within our community. How about for you?
Yeah, man, that's a I mean, now that you said that, that's gonna be my goal. Just
Yeah.
I'm about to just copy paste. That's my goal for this. No, and bro, I'll take full accountability, man. Like that
Yeah.
was I mean, growing up, like it was never like a focus. And
Yeah.
then I think even too, like kind of leaning back on my experiences in college too, I feel like I was just so shocked that that
Mm,
also was not a focus
mhm.
during that time, only until yeah, like recently, as like the Raccoon Rounds platform, for those listening, like we're all of us on this platform are Filipino Americans. And as this had continued to like come up in conversation, um it was that honestly that was like, wow, like this is something that like I need to know. This is something that I need to like
Mhm.
understand. um and not because, I mean, part of it is because to like just understand the history, but like I feel like that's a good foundation in order to be able to like, move like our like what we talked about, like our mindset as Filipino Americans forward.
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
that's just like an
Yeah,
important part of that, don't you think?
definitely, man. I'm glad you brought that up because it's not just important to learn the history. I think it will help us also learn is why things are a certain way right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know you may ask, like, why are my parents, if you're Filipino American, why are my parents think this way, or why do they try to impose this idea on me? Well, there's so many different layers on top of that, like scarcity mindset and any other like
Yeah.
generational trauma, anything that may be making them react this way, you should learn about, right? Like
Yeah.
if your parents are still around, if you're looking after your grandparents are still around, like ask them, learn about their
Yeah.
history, like what it was like back in the Philippines, or like what they had to give up and what it was like here. I mean, they may tell you like you don't know what it's like back there, or like your cousins that are still back there. And it's like, I mean,
Yeah.
David, I think we've both been to the Philippines, so it's like
Yeah.
we it's different when you hear it from them, but when you see it firsthand, you understand. You
A
know what I
hundred
mean?
percent.
And what's wild is that the issues that they faced back then hasn't made as much progress back home. And I don't want to say, and I don't mean to make that generalization because I don't know enough yet, but just from my quick observation, visiting and then just hearing from my parents and the news and reading a little bit about it, it's like there's still a lot of challenges they face back in the motherland in the Philippines, but it's important for us to learn back there, what they're going over there and the history back there, and also here, you know what I mean? And I think when you said that this will help us improve, make some progress, not just from our mindset, but for the livelihood of our community, you, me, everybody who looks like us, anybody who identifies with us. And that's why it's important. This month is important, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm just curious, like when was the last time that you went back to the Philippines?
It's been a long time. It's been too long, man. Yeah,
Too long?
I haven't been there since like I was in high school, bro. To be honest,
Since you're in high school, okay.
Yeah,
I went back I went back once in 2014 and then once again in 2016. And the time in 2014 was like the first time I went to the Philippines. Yeah, so a little bit more recent. But what was your experience going back?
Going back, at least the latest time that I went was probably I was like a junior in high school, man. That's how long it's been. I will say that I saw two parts of it because it depends on what side of the family I would see, right? And it depends, like, because some family members they're living really very well, you know what I mean? They're doing great over there, but then I saw family members who were not, and it was really tough to see because you'll see like homes that don't have flooring. It's like dirt. You know what I mean? It's like literally what you hear about third world countries, And I think of stories that people tell me of like not knowing where the next meal was coming from, literally, or like that. I mean, we have a hustle mindset here, but then when you go there, one of the things I remember was that there were kids outside the mall, right? And they, for some reason, when my cousin was backing up out of his parking lot, this little kid ran over and was like directing him how to back up, right? Making sure he wasn't in his car. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, I wonder why he did that. And then he comes up to my cousin's window and like puts his hand out because he wants to get a payment for that, right? And my head is like, man, these kids are trying to find a way to survive, to bring money home or to buy whatever they need, that they do little things like that, which is wild to think kids doing it here. You know what I mean? How about for you? Like, I mean, that's just one story for me. What was your experience like?
Yeah, man. I it's interesting. I also had a very similar experience like that, but it was at the airport. But one of the things that I remember, like, I would always ask, like, oh, like why now am going to the Philippines for the first time? I was, what was it like? Yeah, I was in my like 20s. First time going to the Philippines. And like growing up, I remember a lot of people always ask like, oh, like have you went to one, like all the aunties or whatever, like it's like, oh, when was the last time you went to the Philippines? I was like, I've never been before. And then I would get like shamed for that, like he's like, why you never been to the Philippines? I was like, I didn't understand why. I was like, okay, I guess like it's just one of those things, never understood. And then I remember like asking my parents too, like why haven't we gone back to the Philippines? Like we always talk about like our family back there. We would always like send things back to our family.
Yeah.
I'm like, why haven't we gone back? They're like, oh, it's just like, not safe, or like it was or something like that. It was like some sort of like negative thing that I was like, oh, like, it's like it's not safe, or that was pretty much it. That's what honestly I remember.
Yeah.
And then we went back for the first time, and bro, it was like amazing. I was like, dude, this is what I've been missing. Like this is like, I mean, there are some parts where it's like okay, yeah, like you see like a lot of places that are like run down, and it's just like, yeah, very, very different. Kids hustling, kind of like that, just doing things to like put food on the table. But then like there was just like, I don't know, maybe it was just I hadn't been there. I just had so much like pride to like, I'm actually here. Like this is like such a beautiful place. Like the people are just so nice, so kind, and like it just like shifted the entire perception of like everything, like leading up to that, like during my childhood. I was like, man, like we hadn't gone back because of X, Y, and Z, but like that X, Y, and Z doesn't even exist really. Like here.
Mm.
That's kind of what I experienced. And then we went back again in 2016, and just more of that. I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is just so crazy. Like seeing family that I've never met before, but they were just so
Mm.
like, they were just like, oh my God, like we've heard so many things about you,
Yeah.
like huge. I'm like, yeah, like I didn't even know like you guys were here, you
Yeah,
know.
for sure.
That was like such an interesting feeling, and just kind of like tied me back to like to that experience. I don't know. Yeah,
It's
it's crazy.
awesome, man.
Yeah, yeah. But you're right though. It's the way that like we just think about things. I That's something that I noticed. The way that we thought about things was very different. Not even
Mm.
just like people like my cousins and like the people we interacted with back in the Philippines, but like I could even see the shift in the difference in mindsets between them and then like my parents, who kind of made this, they're kind of like straddling two different cultures almost,
Mm. Hmm.
American and Filipino. And then for me, that's, you know, I would more so, again, I just identify as like more American than Filipino plus Filipino. And so I could
Hmm.
just see like I was like picking up on like those differences. I don't know, did you have you kind of seen that as well?
I think now that I'm older and probably more self-aware, I probably will. But back then, I didn't. I'll admit that I didn't.
Hmm.
I mean, I noticed obviously the differences. I noticed all the cultural differences. You know, being from the Philippines culture, and then also the Philippine American, mainly American culture that I
Yeah.
experienced. But yeah, I mean, I think, and it also depends because Philippines is such a huge and diverse area. I mean, like all the different islands there and all the different
Yeah.
locations. So it's really depends where you go on for your experience, and but always with the people and how welcoming, like seeing family members for the first time, meeting them for the first time, same kind of reception. It's like I had one of my uncles there, like it's so funny. Have you seen the memes whenever like you like something and like and your dad finds out and he's buying you the same thing or whatever?
Yeah.
In that case, that was like my uncle in the Philippines. Like, I love these cheese rolls. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, every breakfast, he's like, "Chris, I got you cheese rolls." I'm like, "Thank you." And then like Stickos, he's like, "Chris, I got you Stickos." I was like, "Thank you so much." Like they're spoiling me, and that's what
Yes.
they want to do up there. Like
Yeah.
we always talk about like how they don't seem to have enough at times, but they're always willing to give. That was what I experienced there. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But I think, I mean, I've heard like of the areas in the Philippines that are more like for like vacationing and stuff like that. But the main places that we went to Manila, we went to Cavite City, we went to Pampanga. So like I guess that's like the city areas mainly where
Mhm.
we were at, and I did see a lot of like poverty. And I saw like people who were
Yeah.
struggling, and I had to adjust to that and understand and not look at it negatively, but more like just accept, okay, this is a livelihood there. I wish things were better, but I can't look down on these people. You know what I mean? And I
Oh
think at that
yeah.
time, at that age, I had already knew that. You know what I mean? And even if my family would help or like is there to help,
Yeah.
or we would send stuff back home, it's like these people are our families. People are people. You know what I mean? How about for
Mm.
you? You.
Dude, yes, bro. Yes. These are like our people, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And like I'll be real, man. Like growing up, I had no I didn't even know what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these are like these are your like people. Bro, ask like, 15-year-old me. Like I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
even know what that I wouldn't even know what that means.
Yeah.
But be like seeing that, and then being able to like experience that, but then also kind of like what you said, like growing up being more self-aware around like what's the what are the cultural differences between, like me as like a Filipino American and then just these Filipinos.
Mm-hmm.
See, being aware of those types of things, being aware of my own like lack of knowledge around Filipino history, being
Mm-hmm.
aware of yeah, man, just like what my I guess there was like a there yeah, I didn't know. Being self-aware of those types of things, how I think now has just, I don't know, it's given me like a different like level of appreciation for like that, and
Mm-hmm.
desire to like we talked about earlier, move that forward,
Mm-hmm.
to move that forward. um I want to ask, like, I don't know, this is gonna get like on a deeper level, like what for you is like moving that forward, like what does that mean to you?
Oh man. I can't speak too much in moving forward for those in the Philippines, right? Because I don't
Yeah,
know enough
yeah,
there, but I can at least speak of what I envision here or what I
yeah.
hope to do is providing more representation for Filipino Americans, you know, like especially not for the up and coming generations, right? I want them to not think of themselves being in a box of what they should be and what path they need to follow. You know, I want them to see themselves um like not in just certain industries that they kind of expect they should be, but also like on the big screen or like on the waves, like on listening to themselves on a podcast or hearing themselves on the radio. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I may not be that face on the screen. I may not be that voice they hear on the radio, but I want to help anybody who wants to be that voice or that
Right.
face, or so
Yes.
even like like if you want to have a seat in our government to help make changes, I want to be the one to vote for you. You know what I mean? That type of thing where I can make some kind of impact, which whether it be me inspiring somebody or like going out and making connections to make those moves, you know, or
Yeah.
just this podcast, you know, just us gearing towards a certain audience. That in itself, I think means a lot. How about for you?
Yeah, man, dude, you hit that on the head for sure.
Mm,
Like, it's just, yeah, it could be like as small as like what you said, allowing someone to just think a little bit bigger, right? I
mm-hmm,
had a conversation, interestingly enough, he with this like a friend of mine. He's not Filipino. He's Indian,
mm,
but there's a lot of like similarities culturally, I think,
mm,
from like a student's perspective, and we just like connected on this like concept that, you know, growing up, there are like three professions that we're like allowed to pursue, right? And it's just
mm-hmm.
like I literally, when I said that, like he started laughing just because like he like on you just like get that, you like
Yeah,
get that.
yeah,
And but kind of like what you said, being able to like change someone's like perception that like, no, there's not just three, there's like 3,000,
yeah.
right? So doing that on like a micro scale, but like also kind of what you said, you know, like making or like causing like a positive change in some fashion, you know, on a larger scale. Like, I don't have to be, I don't have to be the voice in your ear. I don't have to be the person that you see on screen. I just want to be part of the movement,
Mm,
you
yeah, right
know.
there.
Yeah, like that's what it is. I think, man, it starts with conversations like this.
Yeah, for sure. And people hearing more conversations like this and joining
Right.
conversations eventually, you know what I mean?
Right, right. I think like, and kind of to that conversation that I had with that friend of mine, you know, a lot of these things too, it's not just like, not just for Filipinos, you know, it's
Mm,
like it's so relatable. There are like so many things that we all kind of like go through,
hmm,
kind of in parallel,
yeah.
right? And it's like so many things that are applicable to other people, that again, like my friend, you know, showing or not showing, but like having that conversation that, yeah, there isn't just three things, there's 3,000 things that you can be. You just
Hmm.
you gotta pick the right one for you, right? So it transcends a lot of that, I think.
Yeah, and I love that you bring that up because as much as we're talking about, you know, it being Filipino American History Month, I mean, there's a lot of people who are not Filipino who can relate to what we're talking about, right? There's a lot of like allies and common ground. You know, it's funny you
Right.
bring that up because it's like I bet you what we're describing and what David says that there's only three careers that we're kind of given. If you're not Filipino, you hear this, you're like, well, that's also in this culture and my culture, and that, you know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
But I think bring that up and being a part of this whole movement is a perfect time for us to talk about this move that we're planning to do with Raccoon Rounds and what we want to and envision this to be. Do you want to talk about it, David? Do you want to?
Yeah, man. Yeah, just to kind of like kick that off, man. Like, we just been talking so much about like what we want to do and like how we want to, like the impact that we want to make. And you know, we want to be like kind of like we said, part of the movement, part of the movement. And how do we, how can we be part of that? You know, we talked about this too. It's just, we want to be disruptors in of change, right?
Mm-hmm,
Positive change in like the mindset, in the, like kind of what you said, Chris, the box that we previously put ourselves in, the glass ceilings that like, you know, sit above our heads.
mm-hmm,
We want to break those things. We want to push beyond those things. The cultural envelope, you know, that we're so often maybe confined to. We want to push beyond that. And you know, like we said, we don't necessarily need to be the voice that you hear, the person that you see on the screen, but we just want to be part of that movement. And it starts with conversations. So I think the whole team is in alignment with that. And we're just like so excited for like what's to come. But like what about for you, Chris? Like where do you see that? And where do you see like the platform making those types of changes?
Oh man, I think you pretty much covered everything, but I want to say that as we were making this move and we were trying to, be a part of this movement, we're learning as much as you are learning
Yeah.
who's listening. You know what I mean? And that's why we're trying to bring as many guests that we can learn from together. You know what I mean? And to expand this new way of thinking, I think, the main thing I think is just to shift the mindset, right? Like David says, we don't want us as Filipino Americans to feel like we're in a box. There's so many different personalities and talents and just passions and different things that people want to pursue, and we want people to be able to share it. We want people to be able to learn how to share it, where to go to. That's exactly like what I envision. You know what I mean? I want people to think of Filipino Americans as just beyond whatever any kind of stereotype, whether good or bad. You know what I mean? I just want us to be able to share and to learn as much as we can.
No, man, I love that. And I'm just excited for like what's to come. And yeah, man, it's crazy that, this is coming upon October, man.
Yeah.
It's a big time. And I think, if not the perfect time to just talk about these types of things.
Yeah, man. Excited for it.
Let's do it, man. Let's go and grow.